And welcome into a Monday edition of the Hustle Show podcast here for this Monday short on October 9th as we get you set for Monday Night Football, Major League Baseball playoffs. Hey, everything is coming up right now. NBA even starting, NHL as well. I'm Mark Zinno, joined by my good buddy, partner in crime, Brian Power, at Brian Power _wins on Twitter. I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Brian, great to be with you on this Monday. How are we doing?
Doing okay, I suppose. Was doing a lot better before Sunday, but I guess that's what Monday Night Football's for, to bounce back. You and I are here to talk Raiders-Packers, a rematch of Super Bowl II, a game neither of us bet on because we weren't alive, but if we were alive, I'm sure we would have bet on it.
Yeah, the back in the good old Bart Starr days. We do not remember the old AFL, NFL days of lore, as you would say. But that said, we have a lot to get to with this game here. And look, you look at the Raiders as a 2-point favorite here. There were some 2.5s in the marketplace earlier in the week, even some 1.5s that's been floating back and forth. The public seems to be siding with Green Bay and the points here. You're looking at two teams that don't really do anything special all that well. However, you look at the Packers, who have got some impressive wins on their schedule, and the Raiders won their opener and have lost 3 straight. So who has the edge in the matchup?
Well, you and I talked beforehand, and as any two, professionals would do, and we kind of uncovered a curious stat that the Raiders defense, which I don't think either of us have a ton of regard for, has been remarkably good in the second half of games. They pitched a shutout last week against Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Wasn't enough to get the win, but they got back in the game, didn't even cover because they were getting less than 7. But, to hold an offense like the Chargers scoreless for a half is pretty shocking. They held the Steelers scoreless in the fourth quarter 2 weeks ago on Sunday Night Football, another primetime game here in Sin City. And then in week 1, a game which featured an incredibly low amount of possessions against Denver, they allowed only 3 points in the second half. Buffalo, who has a tremendous offense, we all know, maybe not when they're playing in London, but when they're playing here in the United States, the Bills have no problem scoring points generally. It seems rather curious how the Raiders in 3 of the 4 games just haven't given up much after halftime. I think a big part of the handicap is, do you think that's going to continue, or is that just noise? I'll let you answer.
Yeah, I mean, again, obviously the Bills' offense didn't clear customs at Heathrow, so they weren't allowed to bring it on the plane with them. All that said, yeah, I mean, it's hard to figure out what either one of these teams is because the level of inconsistency across the board, is just sort of it's what jumps out at you. You look at a Jordan Love who looked great against us and then stunk for 3 quarters against the Saints and out of his backside and wins a game there. I mean, it's hard to figure out exactly what this offense is. I will say this much. Both of these teams are very bad at stopping the run. The Packers are second to worst in all of the NFL, and the Raiders are bottom 10 in the league in stopping the run. So it's like, what do you really want to try to figure out that each one of these teams may or may not do well in this given game?
Yeah, and, you talk about Green Bay, the offensive struggles. It's kind of the opposite when we talk about with the Raiders. The Raiders, they turn it on after halftime defensively. This Packers offense, the last time we saw them against the Detroit Lions, to say they were slow out of the blocks would be putting it mildly. 1 yard in the first quarter against the Lions. 1. And I believe they had 21 total yards at halftime. Now they sort of rallied back, almost made it a game. If you had the pack and a tease, they teased you a little bit that they would stay, get within that teaser number. So it's interesting. I don't think, with the extra prep the Packers have here, that the Raiders defense is going to be as good as what we've seen in those 3 aforementioned games. Watson and Jones were on snap counts against the Lions. They won't be here. So this is probably as close as we've got to a full strength Packers offense as we've seen since the opener, if not all season. I can see Green Bay going over its team total here. And I think we're in lockstep perhaps with this because you talked about the line movement on the point spread. Well, we've seen the over get hit, right? I think it's up to 45.5 as of when we're recording this right now. Regardless, it's come up a few points. My view is this game's not going over unless if Green Bay goes over its team total. So that's something to watch. The Raiders have given up, the Raiders have not scored many points, regardless this year
No.
of what the outcome is. Even in that win against Denver, it was 17-16. So I think if you like this game to go over, it's probably going to be because Green Bay's offense wakes up and plays well tonight.
Well, the other part of this game going over, too, I would add, is simply Josh Jacobs has got nothing going this year. He's averaging 2.7 yards per carry. Now, he's going up against a defense I told you has the second to worst run defense in the NFL. Is this the game where he has the breakout? Is this the game where all of a sudden the guy who had such a great year last year all of a sudden shows up? And you mentioned Aaron Jones, and I posted this as a free play on my site. I don't over at Sports Memo. I don't jump into the prop market all that often, but when I'm looking at a bottom 10 run defense in the Las Vegas Raiders, the offensive line for the Green Bay Packers is fully healthy once again. Aaron Jones, now after straining his hamstring in week 1 against the Bears, sat out week 2, then played the Thursday night game against the Lions. So he had 10 days. Now he's got another 10 days off, and he only had 6 touches in between. So he's really kind of had almost 3 weeks of rest here to get back to 100%. All the reports indicate that he's going to play tonight. I haven't seen anything about them bringing him along slowly or putting him on a pitch count again. It looks like he's going to go here. We could take advantage of a low number for Aaron Jones at 48.5. I like him to go over this rushing yards prop tonight against a bad Raiders run defense, BP.
Yeah, and I'll get to my prop here in just a second. I want to add in 2 things, though, for this game. You talk about, will Green Bay come out better than they did against the Lions? Well, it's almost impossible to come out any worse. But here's the thing. Matt LaFleur, off a straight-up loss as the coach of the Packers, is 14-4 against the number. This is typically a spot where his team bounces back. Also, go back to last year. The Raiders' defense has surrendered an average of 26.9 points per game over their last 10 at home. So, again, I think that, we both might be thinking that the Green Bay, their offense is certainly going to look better this week with the mini bye, as they call it. Well, when you come off the Thursday game, extra time to prepare. Now, I'm also going to look to the prop market like you. I don't dabble too much in the prop market, but I think this is something, as you and I regularly cover these Monday night games, we're going to start doing for the viewers here on YouTube. And I'm going to look at the Raiders side, Mark. I'm going to look at Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a big part of this handicap, returning. He did not play last week. He has cleared concussion protocol. He will be on the field. You look at the first 3 games, something sticks out like a sore thumb for Jimmy G, and that is the number of interceptions he's thrown. He's attempted only 94 passes, but he has 6 interceptions. That's a far cry from what we saw from him in San Francisco, where they kept the offense simple. You now see Brock Purdy, obviously, having a ridiculous amount of success under Kyle Shanahan. Garoppolo did there as well, but he's across, not across the bay. They've moved to Las Vegas, memo to me. But, Jimmy G, he's making more mistakes. 6 interceptions and 94 attempts. The Packers defense, Mark, has forced 4 turnovers in the first 4 games. I believe it's juiced a little bit, but I believe Green Bay is going to get one from Jimmy G. My favorite prop tonight for Monday Night Football is Garoppolo to throw an interception. That's minus 135.
Can't hate it. I mean, Jimmy G, kind of a gunslinger, if you will, at least in the way he throws the ball around the field. And it's the Davante Adams revenge game. I wonder how that much is going to play into this whole thing. Adams is a little bit nicked up. How much is he going to try to show out tonight against his former team? How much will Garoppolo try to force feed him the ball just to see if he can have a good game against his former team? I think all those things sort of play into this.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's going to be very popular in the anytime scorer market, you have to think, right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see around, 7:30, 8 Eastern on Twitter, everyone's like, oh, most popular bet for the anytime scorer, Davante Adams. Again, though, you do have to monitor his status because I don't think it's 100% confirmed he is playing yet at this point, although, he's obviously going to want to be on the field.
Yeah, make sure you guys leave a comment below here in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts on the topics that we're talking about here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. One more question for you, BP. I mentioned Josh Jacobs, the slow start he's had. I've seen some other prop guys out there, as you scour the internet for who's on what during the week, or at least for tonight's game, that Jacobs will have the breakout game tonight. Are you the type of guy when he's been so dead for 3 weeks or 4 weeks now do you want to try to play into the fact that this is the opportunity, this is the spot where all of a sudden he breaks out against a bad defense?
Okay, it's kind of like what we talked about with this Raiders defense. Do you think it's like a signal, or do you think it's noise when you look at the trend? Like, it's like, okay, I don't really believe in the Raiders defense. I don't think it's a particularly good defense. So the fact that they've played well in the second half in all these games seems strange to me and seems like it's not going to continue. If you believe in Jacobs, believe he's a good back, believe in his body of work, then yes, he should be due for a breakout game here against a Green Bay team that, like you said, has struggled to stop the run. And conversely, I like your other prop as well. Both these teams struggle to stop the run. So, yeah, I think both running backs are going to find success here on Monday night.
Yeah, and the other part too about whether what the Raiders have done in the second half, you have to remember game script plays into this. They were trailing big the last 2 weeks, so the other offense can afford to be a little bit more conservative and put their defense back out on the field, and they can just they don't have to take as many chances. Whereas the Raiders are playing from a negative game script, and things are a little bit different. So, if this is a closer game, it's a tighter game along the way, which I think you and I both feel you get that sense that it might be a little bit more back and forth where the Raiders aren't going to dig themselves a 2-score hole in the first half. That second half sort of trend the last 2 weeks where they haven't given up a point in the fourth quarter might change here tonight. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's tough for any defense to do, to not give up a point in the fourth quarter for 3 games, right?
Yeah.
I mean, unless if you're one of the great divas. So, and they gave up 3 to the Steelers, I think was the number. That when Kenny Pickett is the quarterback. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers do not score 23 points very often with Kenny Pickett. We saw it yesterday. They get the win against Baltimore. They finished with 15, I think it was, or 17. It wasn't 23. We know that. So again, it's a defense that's not very good in Las Vegas, and I'd be shocked if some of these numbers can appeal. And we looked it up to that Denver game. I referenced record number low possessions. There was 11 possessions excluding kneel downs in that game. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
ridiculous for 11 possessions.
8.5 easily at most times in the NFL. All right, real quick, let's pivot here. Just some baseball thoughts as we got 2 wildcard games tonight: Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, D-backs. Not necessarily an official play, but just kind of your eyeball of the games themselves. I kind of lean Philly first 5. Max Fried is on the mound. He has not been dominant against the Phillies the way his buddy Spencer Strider has. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been dominant. And there's a lot of panic in Atlanta about the Braves right now and their offense. They're going to go back to their original lineup here, but you get Zach Wheeler, who's been very good 2-0 against the Braves this year. I always have said I don't like giving the Braves all nine outs or all 9 innings with their offense because it's that good. So I'll try to shorten it here and take the Phillies in the first 5.
Yeah, I just want to, before I give a pick on an individual game, want to talk about something I mentioned on the Power 5 over the weekend when I previewed the entire LDS. I said, that home field advantage ain't all it's cracked up to be in this round. We saw 2 of the 4 higher seeds last year, which is when they redid this playoff format, lose and get eliminated. Both in the NL side, it was ironically Atlanta against Philadelphia, and the Dodgers were upset by the Padres. Sure enough, we've had 6 LDS games played so far this year. How many of the home team won? One.
Yep.
So, I mean, that Major League Baseball may want to rethink this playoff format, or do something like maybe reseed, because the time off is clearly a detriment to the higher seed. I think, you don't get in the regular season that much time off, obviously. I'll look to the later game. I am astounded that the Arizona Diamondbacks are 3-0 in the postseason. I talked about it. I was just astounded. The other 7 teams I had power rated 1 through 7 at the end of the regular season. Arizona, I had power rated as number 16. There were, I believe, 5 teams that didn't make the playoffs that I believe are better than Arizona. They had a negative run differential in the regular season. We saw Clayton Kershaw. I mean, the ghosts appeared again. I don't know what it is with this guy. You talk about Strider, how he dominates the Phillies in the regular season, at least. Now it's 2 years in a row he's lost to him in the playoffs. Well, Clayton Kershaw, it doesn't matter who he faces in the playoffs. He gags. And I don't know how to explain that, but it's not Kershaw tonight. Gallen is not the same on the road as he is at home, as you know. I think the Dodgers are certainly going to even up the series. You do have to lay a price, but of course you do. It's nowhere near what you had to lay if you liked the Dodgers in game 1, which would have been a hit to your bankroll, obviously. So I actually think the Dodgers are pretty well priced here for game 2. I do expect them, despite the struggles of home teams we've seen so far in the LDS, even that series up at 1 game apiece.
All right, so we'll keep our eye on the baseball diamond as well as Monday Night Football. Make sure you guys, again, leave some comments below. Let us know what you think about the plays that we're on. Give us your take as well. Don't forget to smash that like button and hit that subscribe button as well if you want to be alerted to any of our betting content. Reminder, the Hustle Show podcast in its full form every Thursday night, 7 p.m. right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Make sure you guys like and subscribe that as well. You get the whole crew coming in here every Thursday night. And, of course, Hustle Shorts every other day of the week. So for Brian Power, I'm Mark Zinno. Make sure you guys give us a follow on Twitter as well and continue to follow Wager Talk for all great betting information each and every day. We appreciate you guys watching. Back tomorrow. Good luck tonight and cash some tickets.